Hey, Gruntheads, just checking in with you because we want to share with you something special.
And also, we hope you guys are doing okay. I mean, it's not all about us. We also hope that you guys have been having a good time since our podcast ended.
Because our new podcast has begun. We're 5 episodes in, and we wanted to share with you just a little sample of what you can get yourself into with Movie Memory Machine.
We think that this is a really good representation of the kind of zaniness that we get up to on our new podcast. It'll make you think a little bit, it'll make you laugh a little bit, and it will make you think about the specifics of cow gender in a way that you maybe never have before.
We trust us. This will make sense if you listen to the episode. So what you're about to hear is our episode on Barnyard from our new podcast, Movie Memory Machine. This episode you'll be able to hear in full. If you like it, go over to Movie Memory Machine and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and search us on any of the social media networks at Movie Memory Pod or Movie Memory Machine. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. I think we're on Blue Sky. Or is it Blue Ski?
Well, I call it Blue Ski, but the real heads call it Blue Sky.
We're on Facebook. So go to all those places. And, of course, you can continue to support us on Patreon. That goes to supporting all of our shows, including keeping Gruntwork on the air. So really appreciate it. That's patreon.com/gruntworkpod. That's all I got. Let's press play on this episode.
Roll 'em.
Somewhere beyond the recesses of time and space, two podcasters are set adrift in a machine, picking up transmissions of movies that are forgotten but not gone.
Welcome, everyone, to Movie Memory Machine, the only podcast about forgotten movies made from sustainable resources. I am your host, Landon Solano, joined always by my co-host, Truman Caps. Truman, it's great to see you.
Landon, it's great to be seen by you here on Movie Memory Machine, eh?
Oh my God.
Eh? This is, I mean, I think that's going to catch on. I think that's going to be a very memorable way to brand ourselves.
Sometimes there are provocative stories.
Mm-hmm.
Parables for the times in which we live.
Yes.
Fairy stories that reflect the insidious nature of politics, corruption, and hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm.
Such is a film, such is a parable, such is a fairy story that we cover today.
Yes.
From 2006's Barnyard.
Barnyard is a surprisingly thought-provoking movie. For a movie that, in fact, did not provoke enough thoughts for people to remember that it exists, when you actually force yourself to look at it, you find yourself starting to ask a lot of questions and go to some strange places.
I have to admit, I'm coming in early and hot with my personal reflections here.
Sure.
I went down an Animal Farm rabbit hole so deep.
Fitting that it would be a rabbit hole.
By the end of the weekend before we recorded this, I had forgotten that we were covering Barnyard, and I was preparing a conversation for Animal Farm.
What kind of boring ass homework podcast would that be? Two guys talking about George Orwell's Animal Farm.
Well, guess what? We're doing it a lot today because there are parallels.
There are. We were texting about this. Just two dudes texting about Animal Farm like you do on a beautiful weekend. And I did not reread Animal Farm, a book that I read in middle school, but I did read the Spark Notes, like, chapter by chapter breakdown for Animal Farm, so I'm feeling pretty fresh on the concept of animals organizing their own society. Between that and Barnyard.
Here's what's up. I have, in my research on Animal Farm, read the book twice and listened to a number of podcasts synopsizing and giving commentary, including In Our Time, the BBC show.
Did you watch Rob Schneider's The Animal? Because that's part of it too, right?
Oh my God, I hate that I used to like that movie. How we grow, we learn.
You did.
So I read Animal Farm twice, and then I watched Barnyard 3 times. I've gone too deep on this episode. I have reached a point of no return.
Do you think you do the smart thing of reading a George Orwell novel twice, and then you do the dumb thing of watching a really stupid movie 3 times. Like that kills off whatever new brain cells you're growing by engaging with classic literature. You're breaking even.
I've lived in polar extremes for the last week, and I've lost all sense of who I am and what constitutes like art.
I mean, you've lived in polar extremes specifically of media about animals on a farm. Like,
yes,
that's it. You're kind of returning to a state of nature almost. Which animal do you think you would be on the animal farm? Not on the barnyard farm, on the animal farm.
I mean, look, on the animal farm,
yeah,
I have to admit, I would be the donkey. I would be the donkey. I
donkey
feel like I'm a cynical nihilist at heart, and just would be raining on everyone's parade about everything.
The donkey, folks, for those of you at home who did not read Animal Farm twice before this podcast recording, shame on you, you lazy bastards. The donkey is the one who, even at the high point after the animals have revolted and taken over the farm, he's still like, nah, this shit sucks just as much as it sucked before.
Which is the only character I feel like from Animal Farm that is transposed into Barnyard.
I think, I think there's also that raven who talks about Sugar Candy Mountain and how badass it is when animals die and they go there. I think that this farm is Sugar Candy Mountain, frankly.
Oh, okay, interesting, because I have some thoughts about how this farm exists in and around the world of Animal Farm.
Oh, Landon, did we
maybe
both
get into.
Did we both come up with the same hypothesis
I don't
for
know.
the episode
I don't know.
again? Oh, I love
it's
when this
possible.
happens.
It's possible.
Okay. Hang on. Let me just say, I've watched Barnyard one time, and that was 2.5 hours ago. So Landon has been preparing for this discussion seemingly since before he was born, and I have been... My Barnyard experience has been the course of this afternoon, so...
And I think that this episode will bore out that the more research you do is not necessarily the better. The more I've learned, the more I've exposed myself to this, the less prepared I feel.
You look into the barnyard, and sometimes the barnyard looks back.
All right, well, today the machine made us watch Barnyard from 2006, otherwise known as Barnyard, the Original Party Animals.
Animals didn't have fun before this. Animals were very stoic and serious, much like the animals in George Orwell's novel Animal Farm. But then these party animals happened, and it's been a lot more fun for animals ever since.
Truman, what happens in this film? And I'm going to watch you closely because I don't have an answer to that.
The animals at a sleepy little farm deep in the country have a big secret. Whenever the farmer isn't looking, they all walk on 2 legs, talk, and engage in all sorts of lighthearted shenanigans. The leader of the animals is Ben, voiced by Sam Elliott, a tough and stoic Holstein cow who keeps all the others in line, makes sure the humans don't find out about their anthropomorphic lifestyle, and defends the farm from the vicious coyotes that lurk beyond the fence. His carefree son Otis, voiced by Kevin James, is more interested in goofing around with his friends than learning the principles of leadership. Until Ben dies in a coyote attack, and it falls to Otis to lead the farm. As he struggles to balance his inner party animal with the new responsibilities that have been thrust upon him, Otis relies on the wisdom of his friend Miles the Mule, voiced by Danny Glover, and flirts with Daisy, voiced by Courtney Cox, a widowed pregnant cow who has just arrived on the farm. Now, Landon, I just want to...
I don't even know what you said. It completely escaped me.
What I said at the end there... my parents love me, and I went to college, and now I'm sitting here saying the words widowed pregnant cow, and it's being recorded on a podcast, and we're going to talk about a movie in which the concept of a widowed pregnant cow is a key plot point.
One of the more commendable things about this movie, in my personal opinion.
No, a choice. A choice was made. A choice was made.
Okay. Let's just get through some specs before we get into some more talk about this.
Okay, before the hot takes start raining down out of the sky.
Yes. This movie was released on August 4th, 2006. And it came... Do you want to guess how many theaters it was in?
Was it in... It couldn't be... What? No, more than 1,500, right?
Yes, more than 15, more than 18, I will even say.
Okay, all right. Well, it can't be the full 3,000.
3,311 theaters.
That's... Wow. Man. Everybody in America had their chance to go to the Barnyard.
Yes.
No wonder all the other animals learned how to party after seeing this movie about the original party animals. Every animal in America was relatively close to a theater where they could see this.
Opening week, it debuted at number 2. It was only behind Talladega Nights, which was also premiering this week.
Wow, big weekend.
Yes, came in right behind Talladega Nights. What I'm finding interesting is the difference between the daily box office numbers and the weekly box office numbers. Because the other movie that came out new this week was Neil Marshall's The Descent, about the spelunkers that find some chuds.
Yeah, all my worst nightmares come to life. Going deep inside a mountain, finding some chuds. Yeah. I mean, one of those on its own is bad, but both at the same time, yeesh. But, no, thank you. I'd rather see Barnyard.
So the Friday that it comes out, the 3 new movies, Talladega Nights, Barnyard, and The Descent, are 1, 2, and 3 on the charts. But once you factor in the weekly numbers, The Descent drops to number 5. Barnyard stays at number 2. It just beats out Pirate of the Caribbean.
Pirate of the Caribbean. A single... Wait, is it
listen, at that point, it was just about Johnny Depp.
Is it like how last week you posited the existence of the Boogie Knight, the one knight who hangs out and sells cocaine to King Arthur? So then is there also the Pirate of the Caribbean?
Yeah. It's just... Listen, you got your way of pluralizing everything. I got my way of singularizing everything.
This is great. This is great. And again, it restores balance to the universe. I pluralize, you singularize, and together we make no impact whatsoever.
So, as I said... it beats out Pirate of the Caribbean at number 3, which was in its second week. Dead Man's Chest, which is that the third in there? Second, third? Who fucking knows?
I have no idea. I don't know how many movies they made in that series. I don't think any of them can count as forgotten movies. But I think that if you ask any random person on the street how many Pirates of the Caribbean movies are there, no one can tell you.
I think the machine will tell us if it's been forgotten or not, because I think it's interesting there are some sequels out there that I think people don't realize were made. And anyway, just to round out the top 5 here, Talladega Nights, Barnyard, Pirates of the Caribbean. In its second week, Miami Vice from Michael Mann.
Okay.
And The Descent comes in at number 5.
I love that The Descent was dropping, presumably because people who were the audience for The Descent,
descending.
It was descent. Landon, I just left that morsel on the table and you grabbed it. It was that all the people who would be the audience for The Descent were like, I want to see horrible nightmarish imagery. They then realized, oh, there's another movie out where I can look at deeply disturbing and unsettling stuff. And it's presumably a little bit shorter than The Descent, so I'm just going to go to Barnyard instead, and that just cannibalized the box office for The Descent.
This movie... Okay, so I got this a little bit wrong in our promo when I said that this was in theaters for 150 days.
How long was this actually in theaters?
It was actually in theaters for 14 weeks, which is not 150 days.
Okay, you could have told me it was. I'm not doing that math in my head.
I believe that works out to like 90-some days.
Yeah. Sure, I'll buy that too. Whatever.
This is kind of remarkable, though.
Yeah.
I think we've seen a pattern so far. Granted, this is our 5th film, but we've seen a pattern so far that the movies we've covered stay in the top 10 for about 2 weeks and then disappear. This movie never hits number 1, but it stays in the top 10 for over 5 weeks.
Is it just that there was just no other children's film
and
kids were especially annoying?
We're going to get to that in a minute. Anyway, let me just finish out some of these numbers here, because that's a whole other discussion I got to get to. This was a $51 million budget, which is low to mid for a animation, computer animated movie in 2006.
But every penny of that is up there on the screen, let me tell you.
Yeah, in the soundtrack. It made just under $78 million domestically and just under $46 million internationally, for a total of $118.5 million.
People made money off of this movie.
I mean, I have to imagine it's hard not to with a children's film.
I guess. But then why don't they just only make children's films? Why? Well, I guess some might argue that they only do make children's films anymore.
Let's get to the meat of this here.
The meat?
Where was this on your radar in 2006? Who were you at that time?
Ugh.
Had you seen it? Give me the scoop here.
I mean, look, in 2006, this movie was on my radar in that I saw trailers for it, and when the machine spat it out, I had the response of like, oh yeah, that thing. I definitely did not go see it. I was in high school in 2006. I was sneaking into Children of Men, thank you very much. That's what I was doing in 2006.
That's your sneak into movie? Mine's The Rock.
Yours was probably a more hell yeah sneak in movie. Like, you walk out of The Rock with your head held high. But so I didn't. The closest I came to actually seeing this movie was I was flipping channels in a hotel room years ago, and I came up on a little bit of this movie and was just like so shocked by what I was seeing. It was specifically the scene where Otis the cow heads off to face down against all the coyotes, and it's him just sort of marching away, and it's a bunch of shots of him marching through different environments with this inspirational hell yeah music playing in the background.
Don't even play the music. Oh,
and
God.
he's the way that he walked, just like the weird kind of, because of the character design of the cows, and I'm not gonna talk too much about this right now because we have to talk about it later. Just the weird stumpy way that he walked was like lived in my head of like that's odd, that's unpleasant.
Yeah,
surely the whole movie
there was no
doesn't look
motion
like
capture for this. It was
no,
motion capture.
It's good. This is good. You looked down your nose at me when I did it at first, but I think I think you're having spent a week among the animals on both the page and the screen. I think it's finally having an effect. So that was my biggest experience of it, was seeing a snippet of it on a hotel TV and thinking, I don't know. What about you? Was this one of the movies that you saw in theaters when you saw every movie in theaters?
No. I was 24 when this came out. And this falls in a very strange place for me. I had so this came out August 4th, 2006. I moved to Los Angeles the week before.
Oh wow! You're like, I need to go to the place where Barnyard came from. That magical town where the great scribes and masterminds who created Barnyard all live and work together.
So, like, leading up to leaving for Los Angeles, I had a lot of shit going on in Michigan, but also just preparing to move. And I don't have any kids or friends with kids at that time, so I did not see this movie. I had no reason to see this movie, and leading up to it coming out, I was so busy that I wouldn't have seen a trailer for this movie. I had zero awareness of this film until the machine spit it out at us.
And now you're making up for it by having super hyper awareness of this movie.
I don't think I do, though. Listen, I was vaguely aware of these types of movies coming out, which by these types, again, I'll expand on in a second, but Pixar was really the only sort of type, these sorts of films that I would see at the time. And even in 2006, I missed it because it was Cars.
Sure.
That was one of the few I didn't see in the theater. Through Up, I think, was probably the last.
Cars, I think, honestly, is... I feel like there's an ideological or a thematic tie between Cars and this movie, simply in that they are CGI family films that posit a world that has so many inherent contradictions to it that if you think about it, if you start to think about it even for a second, pretty soon it's all you can think about, and then you've forgotten the subject matter of the movie entirely because you're only trying to think about how could this world possibly exist. I mean, just the amount of time, the amount of time that people on podcasts have spent trying to unpack. Well, wait, if the Pope in the Cars movies rides around in a Pope mobile, does that mean that there is a car assassin that tried to shoot the Pope in the 80s? the fact that there is a Jeep, there's a World War II Jeep that is like an old veteran in the Cars movies, does that mean that there were Cars Nazis and there was Cars World War II? You go into that thing, and I think that Barnyard, as you will see, offers up a similarly kind of rich tapestry to try and pull apart.
Yeah. No, well, okay. I don't know if I am eager or trepidatious to pull that apart with you, but I feel like I got to be honest about where I'm starting this episode.
Mm-hmm.
In that I almost feel like I need a safe word.
Okay.
I'm so just utterly baffled.
Utterly?
Oh, God. 5 episodes in, we're only going to get 1-star reviews.
much like this movie.
I can only summarize I was so baffled by this movie that I couldn't even formulate an opinion. Did I like it? Did I not like it? I don't know, because every time I watched it, I'm like, I don't remember this sequence happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
From the day before. I'm like, what is Wild Mike? Was he in the last 2 times I watched this?
Wait, I'm sorry. Who is Wild Mike? What?
Okay, good. You don't know.
Wild Mike?
The only way that I can describe my experience and go on this ride with me, I'll give you my own little parable here.
Okay,
this movie
great.
made me believe in ghosts.
All right. Probably not the intended effect. It didn't make you believe
No.
in talking animals. It made you believe in ghosts.
It made me believe in ghosts because this film is like an awareness of something that exists, yet your brain cannot comprehend it and just rejects it outright. So you're just kind of left standing in a room feeling the presence of a movie, but there isn't really one in sight.
Yes. It's like you're one of the robots on Westworld whenever they give them evidence of the outside world, and they're just they can't
Right.
see it. It doesn't look like anything to me.
Yeah, exactly. That is precisely my experience with this. I cannot hold this movie in my head even a little bit.
I think, and I think I know why. I think I know why
Okay.
that's happening.
Hit me with it. Let's get into this.
Let's get into this. This movie, the reason that people forgot this movie, and the reason that 2 people who are trying really hard to remember this movie cannot remember it, is because the character design of the bipedal cows in this movie is truly remarkable in just how fundamentally unsettling it is. They have, these cows are walking around on 2 legs, and they have these wide hips and kind of a short stompy gait. They have oddly broad chests and shoulders. All of the male cows have udders that swing around, as well as...
I will just chime in by saying there is a small but passionate campaign of people that love this movie because Otis is a trans icon.
I was watching this. I'm just like, is there a trans narrative in here? This is 2-3 weeks in a row where we're watching a movie that has queer subtext that is just over our heads. But the way that the cows look is it feels like when you glimpse out of the corner of your eye a banner ad for a very specific type of fetish pornography, and your kind of instinctive response is to be like, oh, no, not for me, don't want to look at that. The reason that people forgot this movie, the reason that we are forgetting this movie, is because it is full of imagery that your brain actively rejects. Your brain doesn't want to... the way these cows look, it's not pleasant to look at them, and your brain is trying to protect you by not letting it in.
Okay, So that is a great segue for me to softly introduce this idea into this episode.
Okay.
Which is, my intentions here truly are not get off my lawn. Things were so much better when I was a kid.
Okay.
But for what you just described, for people like us watching it at our age, that's the effect it has. I worry about what that does to the neural pathways of children that were exposed to this as a young child.
I don't know. Maybe old man yells at cloud a little bit here. I'm
willing to take that.
Look, the 1970s Robin Hood movie. I mean, I think that the effects.
You're talking about fetish porn. Go ahead.
The effects of that movie have been felt and reverberate through our society today.
Yes.
And I'm not saying, I was confused by it when I was a kid. There are a lot of people who had formative sexual moments with that movie, and God bless them, and I hope, nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying, there have been wacky children's movies that have been imprinting on people in strange ways for a long time, and society is still here somehow. I don't think anybody who got weird I don't think anybody who got formative sexual ideas from Barnyard at an impressionable age is bad.
You're making me my old man yelling at a cloud as if I'm seeing a penis in the clouds. I'm not talking about anything sexual with this. It's just the like lack of identifiable characters and story points is like it's creating a lack of depth or empathy. It's like
I gotta say, though, Barnyard, my hot take is Barnyard bad, movie bad, not good, movie bad. However, I think this movie actually has a lot more, I think... Put it on the board. Put it on the board. This movie has a lot more respect for its audience than I think a lot of bad family films do. I think of a movie like I don't know, just pulling one out of the ether that we've definitely never watched before, Zoom, which came out around the same time and is
same year, within like a month.
It's like so like same time period, and it's a movie that is very much just slop in the trough. I guess that's kind of a farm metaphor.
Slop in the trough.
Slop in the trough.
Talking about some fetish porn over here.
But it's just, that is a movie that's just like, whatever, it's just lights and colors for kids. This movie has made an effort. Barnyard is trying to be something. This is a movie that kind of has a message, and it makes a number of really bold choices in service of a distinct creative vision. This movie makes a bunch of really big swings, and every one of them absolutely misses, but I respect it swinging more than a film like Zoom, which does not even bother to swing, and is just like, we're gonna have Chevy Chase, faceplant, like...
Agreed.
This movie tries to say a bunch of things about fatherhood and leadership and growing up, and all of those messages are completely undercut by all the other nonsense in the movie, but it's interesting that they're trying. They're really going for it.
Let's talk a little bit about the filmmaker behind this. I mean, it's an animation, so there's plenty and plenty of filmmakers behind this, but it's a rare case of a animated film being written and directed by someone.
Auteur theory.
His name is Steve Odenkirk.
Bob Odenkirk?
This is a completely different name.
That's my stupid brain. Every time his name popped up, like either on the streaming service or like watching the movie, I was like, "Wait, Bob Odenkirk?" No, some of the same letters are in that name. That's all it is.
It starts with an O and ends with a Kirk.
Much like many of the animals on the Animal Farm, I can barely read.
What do you know about Steve Odenkirk? Because I want to take you through a little bit of his career.
Look, I know that he was in Kung Pao Enter the Fist. I know he's done a little bit of acting.
Yeah.
And I know that he directed, I believe, one of the Deuces Bigelow, correct?
Did he? No, I don't think he did.
No,
Nope.
maybe I got that mixed up.
It's nothing to do with Deuce Bigelow.
He has no involvement whatsoever. I must have hallucinated that. I don't know. I could just look at his Wikipedia page and pretend
I'll
that I
just
knew
give you the
those
rundown,
things.
and then
Why don't
you
you
can
just
respond
give me
to
the
it.
rundown?
How about that?
Yeah, how about that? I like that.
Listen, I believe everyone needs to, blaze their own path and be taken on their own merits, but there's something very important you need to know about Steve Oedekerk that gives necessary context to his career.
Okay.
He is really good friends with Jim Carrey.
Ah, okay.
And I'd say even more than a director, he's known as a writer. Because he wrote the sequel to Ace Ventura. He wrote the Almighty's duology, Bruce and the Evan.
Yes, the Bruce and the Evan. You have to do it singular.
He started writing on In Living Color. So these are all, Jim Carrey projects. He's gone on to do a number of things on his own, have his own successes. In fact, as a writer, he went and wrote The Nutty Professor, starring Eddie Murphy.
Oh, okay, okay.
He wrote Patch Adams. He wrote Jimmy Neutron, which is the previous Nickelodeon movie in this weird Uncanny Valley style.
This movie does look a lot like Jimmy Neutron. It has that kind of throwback 50s, but in a very unpleasant to look at way vibe.
I feel like, and I was going to look this up, and I failed in I got so distracted with Animal Farm, but the at least the humans in this world look like they're from the design palette of the California Raisins.
It's the humans in this movie look more grotesque than the animals, and the animals are really Lovecraftian. So it's you can read that as an interesting commentary on, like, wow, who are the real beasts in this movie? Like, that's not it. But
so he had this weird movie in 2002 called Kung Pao Enter the Fist, where it's a dubbed, like, kind of What's New Pussycat sort of deal, where he took old kung fu footage, inserted himself, shot some new scenes, and put on a dubbed track that he wrote and performed most of the characters himself to kind of spoof it. It's a bizarre film. It has a cow doing kung fu in it.
Okay. I actually know. In fact, I do remember that from the trailer. Isn't there a thing where it's shooting milk out of its udders and he's dodging it like the Matrix? Because
that's exactly right.
Every movie had to do that.
Okay, here's the other thing I got to talk about. He also wrote Cowboys and Aliens. Did I say that already?
I know you didn't say that already, but I mean, I wouldn't blame you for forgetting that you said Cowboys and Aliens, much like everyone forgot that movie existed.
He's the creator of something called Thumbation. Are you familiar with Thumbation?
Is it where it's like Thumb Wars and yeah?
He's the man behind all of those.
My reaction to that, and seeing those on TV and stuff, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, when I was like a kid, I was a child, and I'm seeing that, and my reaction at the age of like 9 to seeing a Thumbation thing on TV was just like, must we? Must we? Can you take this away, please, and bring me back to my friend Rocco and his modern life? I would like to laugh once more. At no age have I had any patience or sense of whimsy for the fucking Thumbation.
I feel like I'm just there's something missing in my understanding of the world to place this sort of creative talent on a spectrum. Because he has a talent. He has a vision. He has the ambition to do something.
Yeah.
One of my biggest questions for this movie, and this is another man yelling at the sky moment, is how do you create something like this? It utterly baffles me.
Utterly?
I keep using that term.
This movie is utterly baffling in that there was the decision made to put udders on all the male cows.
Yeah, there is that.
And that no one at any stage in the making of this movie said, wait, why are we doing this? It is very well known that male cows don't have udders.
Well, a little bit of trivia. Someone did, and Steve Oedekerk said, it's just funnier when they have udders. I broke Truman.
I really do. I mean, because then you think about the Kung Pao and there being a big cow udder-oriented fight scene. Like, the dude has, like, his touchstones that he comes back to. And Evan Almighty, it's like the ark with all the animals.
Yeah.
Presumably there's cow content there. Like, it's... I don't know. It's interesting. You look across a filmmaker's body of work and you see the same themes coming up again and again and again.
He also did a lot with the Jimmy Neutron series. I think he was a creator of it, but I think he was like integrally involved in like its success, its writing, its directing, its ongoingness.
More like Jimmy Mootron if he's in control of it. Yeah.
And he had a lot to do with. I mean, he was the creator, and to presumably the same like level of involvement with the Barnyard TV series, both of which are Nickelodeon Studios shows.
It is wild to me thinking about the fact that they made over 50 episodes, like 2 seasons of TV based on these characters with these same designs. I mean, look, maybe we might both be old men yelling at clouds. Like, maybe there's a whole generation of people who are old enough to vote now who are like, no, this is a normal way for things on TV to look. What are you guys talking about?
I think we need to go through Nickelodeon Studios history real quick. Just some bullet points, but it gives us some interesting context for where they are. This was their second fully computer-generated film, right after Jimmy Neutron.
Wow.
Which stylistically it's very akin to. They're like, we see the breakthroughs that Pixar is doing with texture. What if we went in the exact opposite direction?
we saw how Pixar is creating these characters who you really can like empathize with and want to be close to and spend time with. What if we went the other way and just made something bad?
Here's the other thing is Jimmy Neutron was the first. This is their second like original animated movie. The rest before this, the SpongeBob movie, the hand-drawn one, Wild Thornberrys, the Rugs Rat movies. Hey, look, I pulled a Truman.
Yeah, you're doing mine.
Hey Arnold movie.
Yes. Hayes Arnold.
They were doing the there's only one Hey Arnold movie. You can't pluralize something that there's only one of.
Well, I thought. Well, you know what? They should have made a sequel. Frankly, I want Arnold to go find his parents. They went missing in San Lorenzo, and I want him to get his parents back. Although honestly, his life living in his grandparents' boarding house seems pretty cool. So, I don't know.
So this was, and I wonder if this was if he put together something much in the same way as Jimmy Neutron, though, hold on, let me rephrase this. He didn't do this with Jimmy Neutron to my knowledge, but what Barnyard feels like is, let me put together a kind of storyboarded version of what I envisioned a TV show to be like. And it's the kind of unfinished, like, previs is what they call it in the Hollywood business.
What if an entire movie was a backdoor pilot is what you're saying?
Well, yeah, it's kind of like they got some of the first footage, or they got the script, and they're like, okay, well, what if we launched the TV series with the movie? And, we'll give you the same, basically spend one season's budget doing the movie, and then if it's successful enough, we'll greenlight I'm speculating here, who the fuck cares?
That is an evergreen statement for every topic that we cover on this podcast.
Here's the interesting thing. They go from these hand-drawn animated movies with some CGI elements obviously aiding it, to Jimmy Neutron and this film, which are CGI entirely.
Yeah.
The same year as this movie, later this year, they do the CGI animated Charlotte's Web. That is in the vein of Rango, which is where they will be in a few years.
Yeah.
So it really is a choice to go, we are putting our money behind creating photorealistic, albeit, absurd worlds that you can, look at and have the visual wonder and could potentially be up for an Academy Award for visual effects. And this film.
Yeah. We've got both ends of the spectrum. You know, we're going for the sacred, and we're also going for the profane.
Which, you know, I always tell people my taste in movies are where high art meets trash, and maybe that's just Nickelodeon Studios.
But if that were the case, then I think this movie would be making a deeper impression on you. Unless what you're finding out is that sometimes high art can meet trash a little bit too hard.
Here's one thing I like about Nickelodeon Studios, though.
Yeah.
And where I'll start to compliment this movie is that they were looking at, when they were developing their shows, they were looking at what was on television.
Yeah.
And they were looking at my generation, the He-Man, the G.I. Joes, the Ninja Turtles, and they were going, all of these shows that are being made first with a toy line. And there's very little creativity and originality put into the stories and the characters. Let's open up a creative lab where we can invite people, they develop their ideas, and that's how you get shows like Rocko's Modern Life, how you get Ren and Stimpy, how you get SpongeBob and Wild Thornberrys, Rugrats. Those are all after my time, but
square in the middle of mine, though.
I applaud that
yes.
very much so. And it just happens to be that those become successful and spawn off, you know, all kinds of merchandise, but it at least starts with an original idea, and for that I really applaud Nickelodeon.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, I think that watching Nickelodeon programming growing up, it gave me a lot of the interest in storytelling and TV and the way that characters can come to us through a screen that I think made me want to be a writer and move to LA and fail at that, and then meet another writer and start a podcast with him talking about characters who I see on screens. So what I'm saying is, Nickelodeon, you're responsible for this podcast, folks. If you have complaints, you know who to talk to.
All right, let's talk about this film a little bit. I have some parallels to Animal Farm and some interpretations, but let's talk more surface level about what happens in this film. Where do you want to start with this thing? I'm so befuddled.
Let's start with the fact that Barnyard is secretly a jukebox musical. They don't really seem to promote it based on that, but much of the action of this movie revolves around you know, the farmer isn't looking, the farmer is gone. The animals, a bunch of animals begin singing a song that is usually a top 40 popular song from roughly that time period. Sometimes the animals sing a song by Shaggy. That's fun for all of us. And then all of the other animals...
Animal Farm has Beasts of England. Barnyard has Boombastic.
Yeah, basically the same thing. That is a rallying cry for animals of all stripes, is Shaggy's Boombastic.
I'm upset that there's not a mournful version of Bombastic later in this film. Once things go off the rails and after Ben dies, they're not just like shedding tears while singing Shaggy over his grave.
But so, and you know, animals up on a stage singing and playing instruments, all the other animals dancing around a whole lot, that intercut with one-off bits of slapstick gags, or, you know, it's almost like an episode of Hee Haw in a way. It's kind of like country barnyard-themed music and light hijinks. We're never going more than like 5 minutes without some kind of song or needle drop, and even in moments where characters are alone, like while the animals are off partying in the barn, Ben, the leader of the animals, voiced by Sam Elliott, is up there on the hill standing guard for coyotes, but he's got his guitar with him, and he starts strumming in his guitar, and he sings "Won't Back Down,"
which becomes the anthem of this movie. Tom Petty, what the fuck are you thinking?
What? Yeah, I know what Tom Petty's thinking. He's thinking, I want more of that moolah. He's thinking, I got kids in college. I'm thinking, he's thinking, I want to hear Sam Elliott's dulcet tones covering my song. But there are so many scenes of where a character will just kind of break out into song, and then that will provide the soundtrack for the rest of the sequence to come. And at some point, I realized, like, wait, is most of the music in this movie diegetic? Like, are we seeing the source of the music on screen? And in most of the time it is. This is kind of the rear window of Kevin James farm animal-based comedies. So that's a swing. That's interesting. That's a very interesting choice that was made in making this movie. Like, that...
all right.
That at the end of the movie, the female cow Daisy, played by Courtney Cox, is going into labor. Well, we should discuss a lot of that character in a second. But she's going into labor. Everyone has run inside to go watch, and the wise mule, voiced by Danny Glover, he goes and he sits down on a log, and he starts kind of like harmonizing and drumming out "Freedom is a Voice" by Bobby McFerrin, which then starts to play, and all the chickens are out there crooning with him as he's kind of like singing.
I don't remember that at all. I have no memory of that scene.
Well, that's one of the last scenes in the movie, so it's sticking with me especially strongly.
Oh,
but it is more straightforwardly a musical than I think a lot of movies are, and that's interesting. And it also operates on the musical logic of having a very thin plot.
Here are some of the actual pop stars, that appear in the song. I mean, we talked about Shaggy already.
Oh, yes.
That's just, it's given to a mouse. What the fuck is it? Like a big rat? Like a fat rat?
Yeah, like a fat rat, basically. Yeah.
This is singing, and it's the song by Shaggy. I mean, it's the recording of Shaggy. It's not someone singing.
Shaggy did not go back to the recording booth for Barnyard. He didn't.
No, but I'm saying it's not like the Kids Bop version of Shaggy. It's the actual song.
No, some of the songs are a little bit racy in this movie.
We also have Basement Jacks. It's how you know you're in the early 2000s. Do y'all thing. You have Aerosmith.
Yeah.
You have Peter Gabriel doing a little sad ballad.
Yeah, I think it's like, is it after his dad has died and he's mourning his dead father?
Yeah, it's the funeral.
Get Peter Gabriel's father and son. Yeah, there is a part of one of the, again, incongruous things of this movie is that there will be, scene of everybody partying and dancing, weak slapstick, and we're intercutting with that, and then the coyotes attack, and Ben, the lead cow, is trying to fight them off, but his son isn't there to help him because his son is off partying, and he's like getting attacked by coyotes, and his strength is spent, and he's dying, and we keep cutting back to like, and now Kevin James is going to try to crowd surf on everyone, but he's too fat, so they all get out of the way, and he face plants, and then it's back to like, his dad is dying, being murdered by coyotes, and you're watching it.
Don't remember the faceplant. Don't remember the crowd surfing. Until this very moment, after watching it 3 times, could not have told you how Ben died. But I know that he dies. I know that he fights the coyotes. I have no memory of the moment when he dies.
It is. I mean, look. On the one hand, it's like, what the hell, Landon? Are you okay? Do you smell oranges? On the other hand, I can see how you'd be a little confused because the coyotes all leap at him and attack him and pounce on him with claws and teeth bared, and it is legit. Like, this is too intense for a child. I think that children would be upset by this. But then, and so there's like a pile of coyotes on top of him, but then he shrugs them off, and he like has no visible injuries because they didn't want to go that far, but he is also very clearly badly injured because he just like slumps to the ground. He just cannot go on. So it's a little unclear. Like, you could assume that he just is so stressed out by the experience that he's having a heart attack, like Steve Buscemi in The Big Lebowski.
All right. Well, I want to continue talking about the music for a second because I think it's a big part of why my brain rejects this movie.
Yeah.
I like to think I'm very open-minded, particularly with music. I'm not one of those people who say, "Oh, I like everything except country." Like, there's a lot of country I like.
Yeah,
country and western maybe, but there is one form of music I cannot abide, and it is happy hardcore.
What is happy hardcore, Landon?
Have you ever played DDR?
Yeah.
That's happy hardcore. Just
that's
like aggressively chaotic EDM.
Yeah. Oh God, we do get a lot
optimistic, vibes to it.
And it's remixing like Turkey in the Straw or some kind of like but with a thumping bass line behind it.
This movie is like it wall to wall, when it doesn't have an actual pop song playing, has this happy hardcore like like I cannot stand it. I can't be in the same room as it. It is when Wild Mike is released.
Oh, that's what Wild Mike is. Gotcha.
Wild Mike is like, I don't even know what I can't even get my bearings enough to describe Wild Mike.
Cousin It from the Addams Family. He's like a little ball of fur with legs who is
no one knows what animal he is. And
he's like the Tasmanian devil, kind of.
He's the party animal. There's a moment after Ben dies when they're trying to get Otis, Kevin James, to like get back to partying, and he's like, no, I gotta be responsible. And they're like, well, I know, we'll get you going. Wild Mike. And they open this crate where they keep Wild Mike, and as soon as he pops out, it's just like it's like listening to happy hardcore at 2 times speed.
It's like like what was it, Crazy Frog or whatever, the really annoying ringtone thing. Yeah, or Hamster Dance vibes.
If Cotton Eye Joe did Helium.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Wild Mike is I think emblematic of what a lot of this movie is, because Wild Mike has no real purpose or character explanation. It's basically just, you are sad that your dad has died, we're trying to throw another party and you're not into it, let's let Wild Mike out of his box. And there's just it sets up about 2 minutes of just Wild Mike dancing really intensely, and the camera zooming around and following him around, and other people dancing harder and harder, and the music's going
so all right, just a minute to get personal here on Movie Memory Machine.
Talking about Barnyard.
There's a self-defense mechanism I think I have of the Wild Mike is the best representation I can point to someone to go, this is what it feels like when I'm around children. This is why I'm not a parent. This is why I will not have kids.
Yeah, true.
And that scene is so unsettling to me, so like I can't be around it, that my brain just goes, no, not gonna engage. Just gonna see a wall of blankness until it's over.
Yeah,
and that's a lot of this movie, that energy.
For how much I think that part of why I have almost a warmer response to this movie than other contemporary films of the period is like, Wild Mike is the only really crass thing implemented that is just like, this is pure nonsense only for that we put in the movie simply because we know our audience is just kids who aren't even really paying attention or just going off vibes. Like the fact that there's like a little Tasmanian devil thing in a locked box that they let out like it's the Gimp is very, very much that is also one of the only things in here that feels like a studio note. That is just like, we just need to pump it up a little bit in this scene because we just came off the really sad scene with his dad dying. What if there's like a little Tasmanian devil thing and he runs around? The movie's already pretty chaotic and intense. No, but what if we take it up just a couple more notches? Like, what if there's a special animal for only partying?
Okay, and I want to. That's a good segue into talking about gags and that stuff in a second, because I have a lot to talk about how cartoons do that. But I have one more music question for you.
Yeah.
Because this sets up a big part of Otis, the main character.
Yeah.
What is it about white guys singing the blues that makes them think that they are show-stopping rock stars?
Well, yeah, that's weird. So, like, the reason that Otis dips out on helping his dad guard the fence is because he has to go be in this big musical number back at the barn, which is, like, him singing some kind of blues song with all his friends in, like, costumes or something. And what's interesting, though, is that this is the only musical number in the movie that they cut away from and don't show us. Everything
is it
else,
because maybe it's egregious to think that Shaggy opens for that?
You're saying that this movie is disrespectful to Shaggy, the poet laureate of
Yes.
American club songs.
When it's compared to like a Dan Aykroyd level blues number, yes, I am saying that.
Wow, you're invoking the Croyd right now. This is this is more serious than I thought.
Otis wears a fucking fedora to do his blues number. Come on.
He really does. It's just it's so interesting that the movie is like, oh, we actually shouldn't show this. When they do show the donkey like drumming out this kind of ethereal slow jam at the end of the movie to accompany the birthing of a new calf. No, we can't show him on stage doing the song that he literally skips out on his dad setting up the circumstances for his father to die doing. Like, that's very interesting. We see the end. The most you see is the end of it when he tries to crowd surf off the stage, but he face plants.
Apparently, I have completely blocked out of my head.
Maybe you were trying to you face planted onto your floor because you were living in the moment as Otis, and you forgot about it. You got amnesia, like a farmer kicked in the head by a mule.
Oh God, I can't wait to talk about that scene too. But I want to talk a little bit more about this party scene,
one of
in
many.
a broader context.
Let's just say also, and I will do that. This movie has so many party scenes that they kind of run together, not unlike 54.
You mean Studio 50 Farm?
Oh. Here's a question for you. Do you think Steve Rubell would let Otis the cow into Studio 54?
He let in a goat. Of
Yes.
course he would.
Yes. No, I'm going to say no because he's very judgmental and he won't let people in if they're not good looking. And the cows in this are disturbing.
Fair, but I could easily see Steve Rubell going, "You're not getting in with that hat." I said, "You're not getting in with that hat."
I'm seeing it more like, "You're not getting in with that character design," and then it's like the animators go to work and a different cow walks back up. You're not getting in with those udders.
Okay, so the very first party scene where he's gonna do his musical number, and before we get to that part, I was trying to, meet this film on its own level rather than trying to make it, match a 42-year-old sensibility. And I wasn't really struggling, but I was trying really hard to, like, be a child, watch this through a child's eyes.
Were we the kind of children who would ever enjoy this movie, though?
Hold on. So this opening party sequence is just like second after second after second of gags.
Yes.
It's just like, remember that funny thing and that funny thing and that funny thing and that funny thing. There's a dogs playing poker gag. Someone's painting dogs playing poker. There's the KFC, the people playing darts with the Colonel's
face.
Logo.
Yeah.
There is a bull riding a human.
Yeah, a mechanical
human.
Yeah.
Which I have a lot of respect for gag work, and I'll get there in a second. But in terms of trying to watch this through a child's eyes, I was like, oh, I wonder if kids, like, hook into this movie for as insubstantial as it is, the way that, like, I would rewatch endlessly the opening credits to Ernest Scared Stupid, where there's just something about that music and all the clips and this, like, he comes in and the sound effects. Or there's a moment in Earth Girls Are Easy where Jeff Goldblum, Jim Carrey, and Damon Wayans, all playing aliens on Earth for the first time, are going around Gina Davis's house, and they're touching things, and they're all, like, making little musical things, and it turns into this weird, like, 80s synth pop song number for a moment.
That would happen a lot back then.
I was obsessed with that sequence as a kid. Just like, oh, look at everything they're touching, and that makes that sound. And, watching the sequence, there's so much happening that I feel like it's just a laugh riot purely by the numbers. Like, the amount of gags in such a short amount of time with such a high amount of energy.
And the gags also are being served up kind of edited to the music percussively, so you're getting that kind of audio cue and visual cue, and it's hitting you a lot. And And the gags are hacky, but I have to admit, like, a lot of them, I mean, there's a lot of them. It's so many of them.
I don't. Maybe they are hacky, and I just have an affinity for hackiness. I have so much respect for visual gag artists.
Well, and that's sort of like, they're hacky, but also this is a movie about barnyard animals dancing around having a good time. Like, you're not going to reinvent the wheel here. Like, it is like, a lot of them are just sight gags. A lot of them come together in like 2 seconds, and they don't have the feel of like a movie that is clearly they just filled a room with writers and had them write up a bunch of ADR lines that they could like shoehorn in to get more laughs. Like, it seems like all of these were concepted out at the pre-production level and put in.
It truly feels like the closestly associated with the early Looney Tunes or Disney shorts, where like I guess if you like, because a lot of the early Looney Tunes stuff was like, we're going to a party full of celebrities, and then we're just going to get caricatures of celebrities that everyone has forgotten about. But the
children in the 90s are just looking at like, why does the fish look that way?
What the disconnect for me is the pacing of it, because this is so aggressive.
Yes.
And you look at those like early Looney Tunes ones, and you're like, by comparison, it looks like they just did heroin before animating it.
It's the Requiem for a Dream version of this. It really does, like, Barnyard conceptually does feel like it's kind of a direct descendant of the old-timey Disney or Looney Tunes cartoons that were literally just, hey, it's a bunch of animals on a farm dancing, and their legs bend in goofy ways, or like the horse is playing the piano and the piano keys are flipping up. Like, and I think that almost fits some of the movie's charm for me, is that it's a very simple concept that has been around forever. What if domesticated beasts of burden were actually having a good time when the humans aren't looking at them? But, like, unlike, I feel like, so many other children's films, Barnyard does not try to be like, he has to go on a quest and leave the farm, and he meets a wizard, or something like that, or, like, you know, no, there's no hero's journey bullshit. It's just animals singing and dancing.
And there's no, like, environmental message to it. It's just, like, no overarching, like, this is what the film actually means. It is just, like, I want to dance. My dad died, and now I have to fight off some coyotes so we can all party again.
Compared to 54, the theatrical edition, which is, I just want to dance. My mom died. And I think that also it's also worth pointing out. You mentioned something about, like, as a kid watching this, what do you clue into? It is quietly impressive to me that this is not a movie about, like, there's one child who comes, a human child who comes to the farm and meets all the animals and becomes friends with them and helps them. It's not like, or there's not like a little kid animal who's whatever, like there's like a baby chick who he barely talks to, but like there's not a child analog character. The main character seems to be like the equivalent of like a 22-year-old fail son. Like it's
okay. I'm just gonna ask you that.
Yeah.
How old is Otis? Because he in the scenes with his father acts like he's 15, 16.
Yeah.
And then once he takes leadership, it does feel more like the, you know, stepbrothers, sort of too old to be this immature.
It's hard because he's huge. He is almost the same size as his dad. The cows tower over all the other animals, because cows are large, especially when they stand on their hind legs, a thing that is not possible. The movie wants us to see him as, I think, kind of an Arrested Development early 20s guy who is still acting like he's 15 and has to grow up. And it's weird. It's just weird to see, like, if you strip away all of the other window dressing on this movie, it is basically a movie about a guy who just wants to party and have a good time, but then his dad dies, he has to take over the family business, and he also meets a lady who's pregnant with another guy's son, and he steps up to be a good stepdad. Like, this is like an indie kind of like comedy drama.
It's almost Billy Madison.
I mean, it's if you take it more in the comedy direction, or it could also be like a movie that Zach Braff made around the same time. Like it's like, I figured out how to get my shit together through these quirky relationships with people back in my hometown.
Oh my God.
It's like, and I think maybe me as an adult man, maybe that's why I found myself able to engage with this movie a little bit more, because it's not about like the magic of a child's dream. It's about the magic of like, I gotta get my shit together. I can't keep coasting and living off my parents. I gotta straighten my life out.
Let's lean a little bit more into this story here, because
there's so much of it. Yeah.
Well, there is more than my brain wants to retain. Yet, okay, I'm just gonna throw some stuff out, and you tell me how it relates to the story.
Okay, talk to me.
Humans. We are they.
How do humans relate to this story?
Okay,
when humans are so humans rule the planet. Like, humans are in control. Well, Well, I don't know.
I mean, I don't want to get too like theory with this, but in a post Animal Farm world, if they couldn't do away with the humans, they could like make them vegans and keep them relegated as feed me slaves.
This is what's so weird about it. Okay, so seemingly the hierarchy that we are familiar with of humans like are the top dogs, except they're human. Oh God, I'm already in trouble with this. Humans are on top of the food chain, whatever. Humans do not know in this world that the animals do all this stuff, and a constant source of comedy is, oh man, the cops are chasing this car we're joyriding in, we have to jump out, and the cops run up, and then, it's just a bunch of cows going moo. Whoa, what happened here? We gotta hide.
I just want to interject real quick, though, that the humans, while there are a lot of sequences, this is why my brain can't hold on to this. There are a lot of sequences with the humans interacting or on the periphery of the animal shenanigans, but none of the humans or any of their stories have anything to do with the overarching story here.
This is true. The most interaction they ever have, like, directly, there is one sequence where they are trying to fool a pizza guy into dropping off a bunch of pizzas and pretend to, like, they're sticking mannequin arms through a doorway to pull the pizzas in and pretending to be a human. And there is also a sequence where the farmer walks in, sees them all standing on their hind legs and partying, and he freaks out. They then have the mule kick him in the head to knock him out. And then it's an extended
sequences I actually really enjoyed.
No, actually genuinely funny. Genuine laughs where they knock him out. There's this big debate about what are we going to do? I don't know. He starts to wake up. They kick him in the head again. They're trying to like stage him in a place where he thinks that a branch fell on his head.
Yeah.
But the whole movie turns on this notion that when the farmer is away, they do all this stuff. But it's like, they're always walking around on their hind legs partying in broad daylight, and it's like, what the fuck is the farmer doing? Why is he never at his farm? Does the farmer have a job in town? And then, I mean, this just keeps taking me back to the Animal Farm parallels. So I don't know.
Yes, it does.
Do we want to crack that open in terms of how we discuss the relations of animals and
Sure.
humans in this?
And I'll just give you I've got a lot, but I'll tell you the one that stuck with me the most, which is, if you've read Animal Farm, the whole thing is they're trying to do away with the humans so that they can have a utopia. These two pigs, or one pig in particular named Napoleon, kind of takes things over.
Yeah.
And at first he's like, animals, yay, we're all equal. Let's fuck off humans. And 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. And then essentially by the end of it, it's like all animals are created equal, but some are more equal than others. And the pigs are walking on 2 legs.
4 legs good, 2 legs better.
2 legs better, yes. This film feels like it picks up maybe in the future of Animal Farm, where everybody's walking on 2 legs now. The power corruption of the animal society has gotten so, I don't know, just kind of hedonistic or Bacchian. Is that the
Bacchanalian?
Bacchanalian. It's just living the life of luxury to the point of losing purpose in life.
Yes, this is. We had the same thought. Barnyard can only be seen as a sequel to Animal Farm set many generations after the events of the book, because
it's what Major in Animal Farm is warning against. This is what happens when you have a two-leg society.
Because, in Animal Farm, the animals, when they do their revolution, they set out all these precepts about, like, we're not going to use human tools, we're not going to sleep in beds or live in the house, we're not going to adopt the ways of our oppressors. And over the course of the book, the pigs start doing all of those things and rewriting their commandments to allow them. But, yeah, so this... And by the end of the book, the pigs have become indistinguishable from the humans who they're now openly doing business with. But so this is just basically, it's like, all of the animals walking on two legs, and they love it. The animals like serving humans. There's a scene where Otis is they're talking about maybe killing the farmer or something, and Otis says, "Hey, I like the farmer. He's really good to us. He's a vegan." So, like, they like the oppressor. They're buddy with him. There's this key animalist value in the book of not using human tools. At the beginning of the movie, when Otis's dad, Ben, is still alive and running things, they're having a meeting, and Ben is talking about how, we need to stop buying bootleg human tools from the gopher smugglers. It's not okay that we do that. And then, like, Otis's cell phone rings. He's got a cell phone that he got from them, and everyone sees him. So Otis is openly violating this precept, but because he's the leader's son, there's no consequences for it. And then when Otis takes over, they're riding motorcycles and driving cars.
The movie also just immediately opens up, like, as if it's making a statement. The second we the sweeping panning shot through all the farm goes through, the kind of the archway of the farm property that says Barnyard, title of the movie. We go in, farmer, like, walks in, and immediately they're all like, 2 legs, here we go.
Yep. I mean, yeah, that's all it takes. He needs to be gone for 1 second, and that's what we truly want. I also love that the movie will have you believe that the name of the farm is just Barnyard. That's what just hangs on the sign. Welcome to Barnyard Farm.
It's the Barnyard out of the Repo Man universe. It just calls it what it is.
Just brand name.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sell all of their farm products. They sell it to meat butchery and bread bakery.
Yes.
But so it's this, like, very dystopian take on just, like, yes, everything that was learned from the animals' revolution has been forgotten, and they have, if anything, gone even further away from their animal roots than they were initially. But then also, the movie kind of posits, I don't know, there's dogs in the movie, that the animal's natural state of being is to go completely bug nuts and insane. Like, once Ben dies, Otis comes back to the farm, and all the animals are just, like, partying and going absolutely crazy, even though it's broad daylight. And he's like, guys, you got to stop doing this. The farmer's gonna come. He's gonna see you. So it suggests that animals are too dumb to govern themselves under any circumstances. They need a strongman leader to keep them in check, whose authority is derived from his ability to protect the farm's borders from the enemy at the gates. And then when Ben, the original strongman, dies, it creates a power vacuum. But then, rather than any of the animals trying to say, hey, I should be in charge, they pretty much all just go straight to Otis and beg Otis to take over and be their strongman leader. So it really is just like, these animals are the lowest of the low. They only want to just dance around and make fart and poop jokes and be ruled by whoever's got the biggest stick.
Now, listen, I don't have the poli-sci background that you do.
Well, I mean, I don't either. I just read the news a lot, so we're equally qualified.
No, you were much more keyed into this than I was. So I only wrote a question or two, hoping to kind of get us one of our patented Truman Caps tangents.
Did we not just have one? Okay.
Even further. What you described is, the after effects of Animal Farm, and Animal Farm being the parable of Soviet Russia and Stalin and the exploitation of communism and socialism, et cetera, et cetera. Animal Farm 06.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what this is.
Is Otis a heroic take on George W.
Holy shit, how did I not come up with this? Yes, of course. The hard
He's
partying...
taking over the fight that his father lost.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a fuck
against...
up who only wants to party.
against terrorists, essentially, that are invading his borders. There's literally a line that his father, Ben, says at one point, that fence defines our space.
Yes. A weird concept to lay out in a children's family movie.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And I think that also the nature of what their world is and what their lives are like is on some level kind of I don't know. You can look at it as a version of neoliberalism or something, where it's just like, oh yeah. No. The cows in control have it all figured out. Don't worry about what your taxes are going towards. Just dance. Just dance this music. Hey, look, that rat looks like Shaggy. Don't worry about your civil liberties. Look, it's Shaggy right now.
There's a point, a throwaway line that's made as a gag, but once you dig into it a little bit more in the context of this Animal Farm conversation, it's a little terrifying. Where there's a sequence where this weird ass kid goes cow tipping and knocks one of them over, and he's like, we got to get fucking revenge on this dweeb. And he gets the Jersey cows. Oh my god, we didn't even set up the Jersey cows.
Do we want to briefly set them up now, or do you want to finish the anecdote?
Briefly set them up. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to get too far away from my point, though, but go ahead.
The Jersey cows are a group of, like, 3 cows who are all basically mafia guy coded.
Yeah,
if you remember,
they talk like this!
If you remember the good feathers on Animaniacs, what if 3 animals were basically wise guys?
Yeah.
You understand the Jersey cows. Continue.
Otis goes to get the Jersey cows for retaliation against this kid. Something that his father was always like, stay away from those fucking Jersey cows. They're no good.
Yep.
And Otis is like, I gotta call in a favor. I realize I'm never gonna be a made man here, but Otis and the Jersey cows, my band name, goes and steals the the neighbor's car.
Yeah.
They can drive. Weird.
Human tools, yeah.
They drive to this dweeby nerd's house, and they're like, okay, we got to get this fucker back for cow tipping. They sneak into his room in the middle of the night. As the kid falls asleep, they push him off the bed and goes, haha, human tipping, and like jump out the window, leaving the kid to be utterly insane. Leaving him to like go, oh my god, cows are sentient and can talk, and push me out of bed in the middle of the night.
Leaving him to go, wait, why did the male cows have udders? Why were they standing upright like that? Why were their hips so wide? Why do they have hourglass figure cows? What is this? I'm too young. I'm still forming my ideas of what's sexy and what isn't. Oh no.
They're driving away successful. Again, I'm trying to tie this back into this Animal Farm conversation.
Of course.
There's this throwaway line. They're excited. They have canisters of milk in their hand while they're driving.
Yeah.
a proxy for beer. And Otis says at one point, welcome to the Moo World Order. I mean, it's wordplay. We like the wordplay here. But in the context of this George W. Bush parallel, it's a little disconcerting.
It's the Bush doctrine, basically. We have to fight the cow tippers there so they don't come over here and tip us. Do a preemptive. We're gonna align ourselves with a bunch of criminals to do horrible things, provoke attacks against us. I mean, like, if the thing that puts Otis in power is his father getting killed by the coyotes, it's just like, is Otis in league with the coyotes? Was Otis doing business with the coyotes years ago, and like he kind of had advance notice but didn't do anything to stop it? I realize I've made a lot of jokes about predicting 9/11 and not being able to stop it on the podcast. Maybe not great.
Woo. Okay. Let's.
I think it
Go
is.
ahead.
It is interesting how many things his father tries to instill in him and imbue in him that Otis just flat out does not learn. Like, his dad tells him, don't mess around with the Jersey cows, they're a bad influence. He messes around with the Jersey cows, nothing bad happens. The Jersey cows, in fact, show up to help him defeat the coyotes at the end. So I guess the moral of the story is his dad was a dumbass, and hanging out with the mobbed up criminals
Slightly
was
racist,
a good idea the whole time.
Prejudice.
He was slightly racist against Italian Americans.
Listen, I'm
Here we go.
particularly sensitive to this.
You're right, Landon. There's not there are
He didn't.
not
He didn't wave his fingers back and forth and go,
gabagool, Mamma Mia,
gabagool.
something like that.
Jesus Christ.
It is.
I couldn't even get the words out of my own mouth.
It's sad that there are not, like, better representations of Italian-American cows on camera. Like, anytime you see an Italian-American cow in a movie, they're always a gangster, they're making a pizza. It's like, I never see an Italian-American cow who's a lawyer, or a doctor or something.
Oh, my God. All right. Does that end our Animal Farm conversation?
Yes, I think it does, unless I come up with anything else that's going to make George Orwell roll over in his grave again. Can we talk about Daisy?
Let's get into some more story stuff. Yeah,
We've been trying to this whole time.
This is a subplot that I've got, not necessarily in this film, though it's a good example. I have just generally spicy opinions about unnecessary love stories in movies.
Yeah.
Particularly animated children's films.
Yeah.
There's no reason this movie needs a love story.
No,
at
it's
all.
not.
And it does nothing for the story except give us a way to end the movie with a birth.
Okay.
That said, the choice.
The choice.
There's so much going on with this fucking character.
Such a big
that
choice.
They don't give enough. Like, they're like, let me give you 50 questions and 2 answers.
Daisy. Let me try and sum up Daisy, the pregnant widowed cow who I mentioned earlier. Daisy and her friend, who's voiced by Wanda Sykes and is
Bessie.
Daisy and her friend have come to the farm. They've been taken in by the farmer after some disaster befell their other farm. It seems as though they were caught out in a storm, a huge storm. There was a flood that killed all the other animals on the farm, including her husband, the father of her child that she's pregnant with. And so they're basically cow refugees who have been brought in at this farm. And to some extent, she and Otis...
I don't have a response.
She and Otis kind of bond over their shared trauma of having lost people close to them.
Huh?
And it's just weird to have these scenes where, there's a scene where she's talking about, we got caught in the storm, and when we came back, everyone else was gone, and, she's just, he's listening intently, and he's been talking about how much he misses his dad being gone. And then, one scene later, it's like they've let the party animal out of the box, and everybody's shaking their butts around, it is incredible. I hate it too when they shoehorn a love story into a movie for no reason, but I kind of love this one because they've shoehorned a love story in such a way that it opens up so many more doors, and it makes it so much more interesting because all of a sudden this movie about his arc is this cow learning to take responsibility for the farm even though he just wants to be a party boy.
The one thing the coda that his dad left was a good man sticks up for himself, a better man sticks up for others.
A strong man stands up for himself, a stronger man stands up for others. I'm only being pedantic because, it's like a strong man ruler. Yeah. It's about him, trying to fill his father's shoes and be responsible for this farm even though he doesn't necessarily want to. But then he's simultaneously, kind of courting this pregnant cow, and there's not really any we don't see any window into him being like, she's gonna have this baby and I guess I'm gonna be am I the dad?
He just blindly accepts it, and that's cool.
It's cool. It's
unnecessary, but cool.
I've never seen the protagonist in a family film have to grapple with this specific type of situation before.
Yeah.
This is very much like an indie film kind of thing. Like,
Yeah,
oh man,
true.
who am I gonna be? Oh, I'm becoming a man. Can I be a dad? Is that like these are grown-up questions?
Yeah. And at the end of the film, after the coyote fight, there's a fear that he's not going to get back in time for the birth, and he's like, I have to be there.
Yes.
And like the level of blind commitment he makes to the situation is just like, more fathers need to be that.
I mean, yes, folks, if we take any lesson away from the movie Barnyard, it's that you should be a good dad. You should be you and all of your friends and everyone you know should all go stand in the room where your baby mama is giving birth and should all look directly at the business of her giving birth. She's gonna love that.
Oh, okay. 3 times watching this film, 0 times have I seen the birth scene. I there's something that happens at some point in the coyote fight where my brain just stops absorbing information.
Those are safety features that my brain evidently does not have. They the simple arc of this very simple movie. His dad dies. The coyotes are still out there. He is reluctantly thrust into the position of leadership. The coyotes come back. He tries to fight them. They best him in combat, and the coyotes are like, you're going to let us come and kill a couple animals every so often, and just, and if you put up a fight, we'll kill all of them. You just deal with it because you're weak and you got your dad killed. And then shortly after that, he's about to leave the farm, but then the coyotes have come and kidnapped all of the chickens, and Otis decides, no, I'm going to be a stronger man, and so he marches off in the scene that bothered me so when I saw it in a hotel room years ago. And he and all the other animals fight the coyotes and get the chickens back. It's the fucking movie. And there's a bunch of dance scenes along the way. But yeah, they come back from this in time to watch her give birth to this baby cow. And they've talked a couple times. Like, they have very little relationship. It's not clear what she likes about this guy.
Yeah, it's the sort of like shortcutting the story of like, oh, we all know the love story. They just need to have one moment under the stars together, where they have like a cutesy moment, and suddenly they're in love, and we can just kind of like bullet point our way to the end.
Yeah. That's all we need. Now they're going to raise a child together. They're going to raise a rowdy cow together. But she gives birth, and it's like it's edited funkily. It's her lying there in the stable with a blanket over her.
Is she on her back?
She's on her back, and there's
like a human.
Like a human, yeah. Animals, when humans aren't around, not only do animals walk on 2 legs, they give birth like humans too.
One of those Cars universe questions are starting to come to my brain. Where one of the other cows have to put their hand inside of her to pull the cow out the way that you have to birth a cow from another cow, or is she giving birth like a human even though she is a cow in this Barnyard universe?
The beauty of the Cars universe being indecipherable is at least you get to have fun questions about cars fighting World War II, not disturbing and disgusting questions about, like, how does a anthropomorphized cow's birth canal work? It's a different...
Well, now that you say it, how do cars give birth?
I mean, I can direct you to some Reddit threads that are very long with a lot of speculation about that. What we do know is that the car's Pope believes that a car is alive the second it's been conceived.
Jesus Christ!
But Jesus Christ, also a car. But
wait. I can't even. That's too much.
You're wondering
way too much.
You're wondering, was he car-rucified? And yes, most likely he was. I mean, what else is going to be the symbol of the Cars Catholic Church? But that's not the awful thing we're talking about. We're talking about the different awful thing. All of the animals are gathered in the stable, staring at Daisy as she lies there giving birth. And seems to be kind of just fine. She's just chilling. It's just normal and cool. Otis arrives just in time for her to give birth, and I guess it's Bessie, Wanda Sykes, is doing the catching of the baby. But so she pulls this little baby cow out, and she says, "Oh, it's a beautiful baby boy," and of course it's also got udders, and it's just like, movie, why you really are like, you're really just going all in on this. but she then Wanda Sykes, catches the baby, takes the baby up in her arms, and
I've not seen this baby. I've seen the movie
Otis,
3 times. I've not seen. Is the baby swaddled?
No, it's not swaddled, but it's also not. I mean, it's not swaddled. It's also not covered in afterbirth, which I suppose is probably that's a bonus. I'm not saying I need to see the Barnyard placenta.
That was the mandate of Steve Odekirk was like, I have this vision for a cow movie, and Nickelodeon's like, you know what? No, we're saving the texture budget for Charlotte's Web.
Charlotte's Web is going to be wall-to-wall cow afterbirth, but we can't afford any of that in Barnyard. Nobody wants that. But Wanda Sykes' cow is holding the baby, and Otis is there, and he's like, may I? And Daisy says, go ahead. So the first person to have contact with Daisy's baby, it gets handed to Otis to cradle for the first time. Otis, this random dude who Daisy met a week ago and has talked to 4 times, is the first one to touch and look into the eyes of the child that she carried and gave birth to. And then she's like, he asks oh, have you got a name? And she says, well, I was thinking we could name him Ben. Naming her baby after this random dude's dad, who she didn't even really know. Maybe the name of your cow husband? We never find out what it was. But the way that this is all they open up all of these ridiculous questions with having the pregnant lady cow in it, and then the way that they just tie all of them off, it is mind-boggling.
I don't even know how to respond to all this.
You don't know how to respond to my tangent about cow afterbirth?
I don't. I'm starting to question what we're even doing on this podcast and whether we're responsible enough to continue.
Well, you're the one who read Animal Farm twice and watched the movie 3 times. Did you? You live in Wisconsin. Did you go to a farm and milk a cow before this episode? You should have.
There are some cows that live at the end of my street.
In a house? Are they on 2 legs when you look at them?
They aren't. They're always in the field, but I don't know what they do when I'm not looking.
When your car gets stolen mysteriously and shows up completely trashed at your house, covered in milk in the morning,
I'll start to ask some questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I had further stuff about the romance in this. I think we've covered that. I'm gonna not go into it. Yeah. That's how far you've damaged me here.
Maybe we should have come up with that safe word. You could have said it before I talked too much.
Yeah, maybe that would have been helpful. You know what? Hey, let's take a second. Why don't we? I want to talk a little bit about we're talking.
He said, "Yeah, we're gonna go throw to an ad." American Dairy Council sponsors this show. Have you tipped a cow lately? Well, don't.
We're talking about Otis, and we're talking about Daisy, played by Kevin James and Courtney Cox, presumably the stars of this film. They're probably the marquee names. I mean, Kevin James is for sure, but
yeah.
Though interesting in the marketing materials, though I haven't watched the trailer, at least the poster has no names on it at all.
Wow.
No names above the title.
When that used to be the thing, Pixar never would put the names above the title. It was all that, but then Shrek and everything started popularizing that. And it's interesting to see a movie of the Shrek ilk being no, we don't need to sell this based on the stars in the movie. It's just based off the fact that they're the original party animals. That's all you need to know to get your butt in the seat.
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, if you're selling it to children, what child is going to know who Kevin James is?
What child is going to understand the complex process of dating a woman who's pregnant with someone else's child?
Kevin James started as a stand-up comedian in the late 80s, 90s, and got his television start mostly on Everybody Loves Raymond. He and Ray Romano in a competing animated film franchise, Ice Age, are really good friends in real life. And King of Queens is Kevin James' first huge TV hit. Not really a spin-off of Everybody Loves Raymond, but it's in the same universe. Kevin James plays. I'm not an expert on this, but I believe Kevin James plays a separate character before King of Queens on Everybody Loves Raymond. Then once King of Queens hits, then Raymond and Kevin do crossover episodes. So they're just really spinning a world there.
There's almost as much complexity to the Everybody Loves Raymond universe as there is to the Cars or Barnyard universe.
King of Queens starts in 1998 and goes for a good long while. I think it ended in 2007 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
So like 8 to 9 seasons long.
Yeah.
But Kevin James hits it big with his movie career the year before this movie with Hitch.
Oh yes, he dances,
starring Will Smith. Where he dances. Oh, he's another party animal in that movie.
Yeah, I know. I mean, well, no, I think Hitch is the real party animal in Hitch.
So that's kind of Kevin James's career up to 2006. He goes on. I think Hitch opened a lot of doors for him. He does a lot after this movie. I feel like The Machine is going to throw us a lot of Kevin James in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But between 2001, maybe, okay, let's say between 2004 and 2008-ish, America had Kevin James fever.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would say so. And it feels weird now that the fever has broken to kind of look back at those times. Because this is a Kevin James fever dream, this movie.
It certainly is. I will say I don't have the same hatred for Kevin James that a lot of people do.
I think he's good in this. I think he's I don't know, I find his performance fairly compelling in this movie.
There are a few moments where it feels a little bit when he's doing the like, okay, you want me, like he goes into like try to convince his dad of like, oh, you know what, you ever have fun, you just start with a smile and then it just grows and grows, and then his dad's like, sit, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna sit now. Like that feels a little I don't know, put on it. But there are a lot of great moments. I actually think the sequences between him and Courtney Cox are particularly effective.
You have to look past a lot to be able to appreciate those scenes for actually the lines that are being said. You have to stop thinking about the fact, like, wait, if she's pregnant, how come her body looks exactly the same as his body and he's not pregnant? What does that mean? But yeah,
because he's a party animal. I mean, have you ever?
Yeah, no,
you drink too much milk, you start to develop a pot belly.
I see. Yes, he's got a milk belly.
I want to. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think that they're? I mean, look, them getting drunk off milk when they're also cows, and all of the male cows have udders. I'm just like, is it a taboo to drink your own milk as a cow, or are
they drinking the milk directly from each other?
Does that?
Or do they have to put it into a milk container first in order for it to be? Too many questions.
If you and your boys are out together, like, is it weird if you're drinking milk that came from your bro's udders?
Oh.
or is that just like, that brings you closer as friends?
I am woefully inadequate to address the cow culture that this movie posits.
We have to have a cow on the show.
Jesus
folks,
Christ.
call in. Talk to the cows down the street from you. I'm sure they'd come on.
Well, oh yeah, okay, maybe if there weren't a tornado watch outside right now, I would go down there and ask them. But
do you think that maybe the cow from Twister, is that cow still working? the old guard of Hollywood, the grand dame of Hollywood cows.
So the other person in this equation is Courtney Cox, and I think this movie falls more interestingly in her career than it does in Kevin James, who's just getting started. His makes sense. Like, successful TV star, breakthrough movies, you get your first, voice acting role. Courtney Cox, we all know the myth at this point. It's not even a myth. It's just, we know the myth of her career. She starts in the Dirty Dancing video with Bruce Springsteen.
Mm-hmm.
He pulls her up on stage.
Totally spontaneously. Just by random
has
chance.
A late 80s career as like I don't want this to sound disparaging, but like she wasn't like an Elizabeth Shue, she was kind of like a third tier leading actress. She was stars in Masters of the Universe, the Cocoon, The Return.
Mm-hmm.
To me, she's kind of like an edgier Leah Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
And so she has a couple like big profile things that do not really go well in the late 80s. And in the 90s, it's mostly like movies and TV roles in the early 90s. 1994 is a Courtney Cox explosion.
Mm-hmm.
She stars in an episode of Seinfeld, a very infamous episode of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
She stars opposite Jim Carrey in Ace Ventura. And then Friends premieres.
Oh, boy.
That explodes her, as I said, onto the scene, which the Courtney Cox train leaves the station and almost never looks back.
Mm-hmm.
Because 2 years later, she gets caught up in another phenomenon, this time in the movies. In 1996, she stars in Scream.
Yep.
And she goes from 96 in Scream to 97 in Scream 2, 2000 in Scream 3. All the while, Friends just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You really can't get away from Courtney Cox in the late 90s.
She's kind of Splat Pack adjacent, really.
She's a little older than Splat Pack.
Which is why she's adjacent to them.
She's a Splat Pack elder.
She's a supporting player in the Splat Pack.
So in the early 2000s, though, she's doing some like kinds of odds and ends. I think she's exploring some indie territory. There's a lot of indie work. Right before this movie, she has an uncredited role in an Adam Sandler film starring yours truly.
Oh.
It's the one film that I'm in, The Longest Yard. I'm an extra in it. And you can see me in the stands during the game at the end. She plays Adam Sandler's wife at the beginning of that film.
Right, when he's getting sent to prison or something. She's watching him on TV getting arrested.
Yeah,
that I remember
exactly.
from the trailers. I don't remember you from the trailers, but I remember Courtney Cox.
So Friends ends in 2004. She's in Longest Yard 2005. She's in Barnyard 2006.
Mm-hmm.
She's also in Zoom, which we talked about, from 2006.
Yes, she's also, and I hate that I kept, when I was hearing her in this movie, I just kept thinking, like, did she record this roughly the same time that she was being in Zoom? Like, was she going from the set of Zoom to a audio booth one time to record all, like, 8 lines she has in this movie?
You know what's interesting is, like, she does a great job in this film, getting the emotion for such a small part.
Yes.
I after the third time watching it, I'm like, she probably could do this whole movie in a half hour in the recording booth.
Easy money to be, like, second build.
But this is good. I think there's a long argument about voice acting in animated films, particularly getting celebrity voices, of it distracting and taking away from the quality of the film often. Where Courtney Cox has a voice that, to me, is at times very distinctive, but generally I would not have known that this was Courtney Cox had I not seen that it was Courtney Cox.
Yeah. But again, I mean, it's easy to not really imprint on what voice you're hearing when the character barely imprints on the movie at all. I mean,
true.
Outside of the character's circumstances, it's like Daisy is only really present. She's at the periphery of a lot of the dancing and party scenes, and she occasionally shows up to help Kevin James recap whatever he's thinking about after the most recent chase scene or party dance scene.
Yeah. I'll tell you who the all-star is for voice acting in this movie, is David Koechner as the lead coyote.
Yes, he's really good. I had to look it up, and I was surprised that it was him, not to take anything away from David Koechner.
Well, yeah, no, it's just, I think it's because he plays such he's often cast as, like, very similar characters in all of his movies, just variations of Champ from Anchorman.
Yeah, he's also Todd Packer on The Office, to give you a sense of
which
what we're
is
talking about.
close to
yes.
his Anchorman character.
Yeah.
That when you give him something to sink his teeth into, coyote, it was a little surprising to me, the range and characterization that he could do. I of all of the characters in the movie, I mean, he's not really written as a personality, but I feel like he brought the most to the role.
Yeah. I mean, he is doing the most work to kind of build a character that is not rooted in who the actual actor is. Like Kevin Kevin James already he's bringing with him the reputation as kind of like easygoing guy who wants to have a good time. But yeah, David Koechner is doing this kind of like sleazy, menacing, smooth-talking villain character that's really a pretty interesting rendition.
Yeah, I am just because he can go from menacing to like kind of cutesy menacing. Like, okay, we didn't talk about the hen and the chicks. The hen voiced by Andy McDowell, the chicks voiced by actual children, and
it's
just
great.
A pet peeve of mine. I just don't
Love
like when kids are voice acting in movies. It just bothers me. But I realize it's a personal thing with me.
It bothers you almost as much as when you look at Mike, the original party animal, Wild Mike, and you're like, oh, that reminds me of a child. Wild Mike shouldn't be doing any voice work either. He should only be either locked in his box or bouncing around dancing.
But anyway, when he's interacting with the child actor, she calls him a meaner, and like, God, that makes my skin crawl.
Don't love it. Don't love it.
But then he's able to roll with it by like 1 second before he's like, I'm gonna boil the feathers off of your mother, and I'm gonna eat this chicken as an appetizer. This little chick as an appetizer.
Real peril. Real mortal peril.
And then this little tiny kid just goes, "You're a meaner," and he's like, "Oh yeah, well meaners got to eat too. Meaner, meaner, meaner." Yeah. And God, I hated just doing that right then.
I hated hearing it, but here we are.
But he is able to do it without losing character and kind of go from like actual menace to like cartoony menace.
It is. I mean, I think part of why the Coyotes are so, I think, are too intense for a children's movie is kind of part of his performance. Like, I mean, he is. You very much buy that he is about to swallow this baby chick whole. And also the fact that like when they are confronting Otis and basically they've beaten him in a fight and they're telling him, hey, here's how it's going to be. We're going to keep coming to the farm and you're just going to look the other way. David Koechner's character, the lead coyote, is specifically going after him on a guilt level and saying like, your dad would still be alive right now if you weren't too much of a fuck up to be by his side. Like, you're not capable of running this farm. Like, he is drilling very intently into the heart of this character's insecurities and fears, which is a pretty effectively done thing.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't know, like, I what do you do with this movie? I don't know. We don't need to always do Monday Morning Writers Room with movies, but
and yet we can't help ourselves.
I mean, the coyote storyline is, the spine of the movie, because it does, the dad stuff and the coyote stuff are like what makes the arc of this story.
Sure.
And I wish there was a little bit more, because we really don't see Otis and the coyotes at all together.
No.
Except for when he invades their territory.
Yeah. I don't know, like, I suppose that's a good point, but also this is one of the... I feel like I have no instinct to do Monday Morning Writers Room on this movie, because I'm just sort of like, I don't know, man, it's... My Monday Morning Writers Room, don't make the movie. Because that's it, just don't...
Yeah.
Go do something else.
It is... okay, I guess I'm getting close to my verdict here, but there's one more thing I want to just talk about, because we glazed over it when talking about the humans. The neighbors. Specifically, Maria Bamford, who plays the kind of nosy neighbor.
Kind of an MVP for me, even though her character is not particularly great. Just to hear her voice in a movie,
Yeah. She plays this nosy neighbor who catches glimpses of the cows, but because, and this is text of the movie, she's being treated for a chemical imbalance in her brain. Everyone thinks she's crazy, like the cops who don't believe that cows stole her car, that her husband doesn't believe there are cows standing on two legs outside her window. She's the only one who sees the reality of this world and is being punished for it.
Yeah. How dare you be upset that the cows have stolen your car and trashed it? You who have to have a job and need to use money to succeed in society, whereas these cows who do nothing but party. It is a weirdly dark domestic scene painted by this, because it's like her and her husband sitting on the couch, and her husband, whatever, she's being medicated for whatever chemical imbalance. Sure, her husband is medicating by just constantly drinking beers. Like she's going on about how the cows have stolen their car, and he just pulls out another 6-pack, and it's like, dude, it's your car too. Look out the window. The car's gone, and the car is now on TV being chased by the cops with cows driving it. Like make the connection.
An episode of Cops is being filmed in pursuit of your car.
That's interesting, isn't it? It's just sort of interesting that like, it's interesting enough that there is a full-on like O.J. Simpson style cop chase in this movie. After they've gone human tipping in the suburbs, the cops are chasing them back into the countryside. But then one of the cops has a cameraman in his passenger seat and is talking to him about what he's doing, and that never. I guess just that it's on TV. They've got that everyone sees it, but
it's part of the like humor of the film, which we haven't really talked too in depth about outside of like the gag writing, which is just like there's a lot of. I feel like Shrek kind of set a paradigm of, we're gonna tell a fairy story. This is a kid's film, but we got to put stuff in here for the parents. And so like, what kid that is of the age that would be appealed to by Barnyard is going to get a Cops reference, but their parents might.
I mean, well, yeah, and I'm pretty sure there's a Cops reference in Shrek 2. Like, at some point they are being chased. they're being chased by a bunch of knights, and there's like a straight up O.J. Simpson joke where like it's being filmed from the sky, and they're like, the suspect is fleeing on a white Bronco because it's a white horse.
Right.
So it's not even an original bit. They're cribbing from a Shrek sequel.
Yeah. But, I mean, even outside the Cops bit, I feel like that's just part of the humor of this movie is like, let's just drop in references all across this thing. Like, how many kids know about the dogs playing poker? Yeah. That is granted, it takes up 1 second of screen time, but you start to pepper these things in, and this isn't a criticism of it by any means, like, because I grew up on Looney Tunes, and like, why the fuck as a 7-year-old do I know who Peter Lorre is?
We were talking about the cameos in the Looney Tunes, and that was the one I couldn't put my finger on as a kid. I'm always like, why do I recognize this dude with this weird face? Like, why does he keep showing up in Looney Tunes things?
Right. But I'm glad I got that. I mean, I do feel okay. A bit of real talk here. I feel like I have such a diverse set of interests in life, in what I read, what I watch, what I listen to, purely because of things like Looney Tunes, which is just peppering like all kinds of cultural references up to a certain point of when it stopped, being relevant. Yeah. And Weird Al, where like I got exposed to so many different types of music. I think, and those are all like they are marketed and made for children to a degree. They gave me a lot of stuff that I'm grateful for later in life, because I can, even if I didn't understand it at the time, I can recognize it when I do see the real thing and go, hey, wait a minute, I have a sort of familiarity. It creates a connection when I actually see the thing in real life. It makes me want to investigate it further.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I think that, probably Mystery Science Theater functioned in a similar way for me, where just by virtue of the sheer volume of gags and jokes that were being thrown out, and the fact that, it's a puppet show, it's probably okay for a kid to watch this, like that, asking those questions and cluing into those things, it takes you to interesting places as a kid. Yeah. I don't know how many kids watched this movie and were like, wait, why were they filming a police chase? That seems cool. Is that based on a real thing that they do?
Well, yeah, and of course, Simpsons, I think, is a patient zero for a lot of people for most references in the world.
Yes, no, so many references. I would see a movie, 15 years later and be like, that's why Homer was behaving that way.
Okay, let's start to wrap this up. Unless you have anything we haven't really covered yet.
I got two other comments.
Okay.
One,
okay.
I just want to call out, this movie is technically impressive from time to time. It looks bad. The CGI does not look good here in our ivory tower of 2024. However, having seen a lot, like, there's a lot of low-budget CGI movies from this time period out there, you have to applaud this one. The camera is moving a lot. There are a lot of scenes where the camera is zooming across the countryside, through the underbrush, like, through the inside of a fence. Like, the police chase... there's a lot of kinetic energy to it. Or at the beginning of it, Otis is surfing down a hillside on a surfboard on top of a block of ice with his friends. And I mean, it's dumb hijinks, but there's a lot, the camera, they go off a jump and the camera panning around behind them and they're flanked by a bunch of birds flying south for the winter. Like, it has energy to it, which is crucial when you're making a kid's film, and it's not necessarily, like, that takes some time and some rendering and some work in CGI, especially 20 years ago. So, I mean, respect, the movie has a look to it. It has a speed.
Yeah, it's not my speed, but I can respect that it's not so static like a cinematic cutscene from a PlayStation 1 game.
Yeah, exactly. Solid Snake isn't in there learning about how his cigarettes can help him see lasers. I just have one other thing then, just one other question.
Yeah.
Miles the Mule, voiced by Danny Glover.
Danny Glover, yes.
Why don't they just have him be their leader? Because, like, Miles is the smartest one by far. He's pretty wise. He kicks very well. He kicks the farmer in the head repeatedly to keep the secrets of the farm. And he's constantly advising Otis about what to do and how to be a man and carry on his dad's legacy. And it's like, if you guys are so desperate for a leader to take over, why do you keep begging the guy who doesn't want it to do it rather than the eminently qualified mule? Like,
the real question is, would he accept? Should it be thrust upon him?
Well, Otis isn't accepting when it's thrust upon him, but they're still up on him about it. Is it just that they know that Otis is more malleable and perhaps less stubborn than a mule?
Well, hey, you just hit on something there. Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe they don't want him. Maybe just like an Animal Farm, he's got too bad of a tude.
Yes. Animal Farm it's really a chilling warning about the dangers of having too much of a tude. Hey, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad.
Oh my god. Okay. Let's transition into why this film was forgotten.
Sure.
Okay. I've got a closing salvo. Is that what would you call that?
A closing salvo? Well, I mean, I have my logic for why I think the thing was forgotten. I think I made
Give me
that
your
noise.
logic. I have hard evidence.
I think that the movie was forgotten. I mean, first, naturally, what I said earlier about the fact that the imagery in it actively hurts your brain and you delete it just automatically, as has happened to you 3 times. But also, I don't think that Barnyard was bad enough or weird enough to be remembered. It's obviously not good enough, that much we know, but it's not like, there's movies like Food Fight from this era which are so bad as to be unwatchable and legendary for that reason. And then there's movies like Shark Tale, which is really weird. It's very crass in its attempt to completely rip off Finding Nemo, but simultaneously be like a slice-of-life New York movie. Like, those kind of...
stars Martin Scorsese as a shark.
Yeah. It's like, what if there was a shark that looked like acclaimed director Martin Scorsese? What if this fish...
And was voiced by him.
And was voiced by Marty Scorsese. What if there was a fish whose face looked like Will Smith's? And that, I watched the trailer for Shark Tale after watching Barnyard, and I'm like, no, I actually think that Shark Tale is dumber and more offensive to me than Barnyard is. Like, so but I think that it's just its badness and weirdness is interesting, but it was never bad enough or weird enough to really get remembered and lauded as a famously bad movie. So it kind of just evaporated into a successful 2-season Nickelodeon TV show that none of us remember.
Yeah, it's weird how the story just lives, like, it just vaguely connects story beats without really having a story.
Yeah.
And its characters are not memorable. They're kind of archetypes, but not even really.
Mhm.
Like Joseph Campbell would be squinting real hard at at what they're trying to do with the characters here.
Joseph Campbell, in Hero with 1,000 Faces, there's also a subnote that says, like, every male character in your story must have an udder. This is crucial across all of dramaturgy and literature. This is the one thread is udders for men.
Yeah, I agree with you. The animation lives like deep in the subconscious, even far beyond the uncanny valley. Like you have to travel through the uncanny valley to get to the place in the center of your brain where this like starts to rot.
You have to kind of awkwardly march like Otis through the uncanny valley to get there. The scene that I saw on TV all those years ago.
It's like a never-ending story when you have to pass between those two statues with eyes that glow and shoot lasers at you.
Yes.
Like you have to go beyond that. That's how like uncanny valley this movie is. But okay, there's a very, very simple reason, even beyond those those reasons that you gave, that I gave, that I think are going to be very common for a lot of the films we cover on this show.
Yeah.
The tangible evidence for this movie being forgotten is market saturation.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a list here. 2005, the year before this movie comes out.
Mm-hmm. You've
You've got Racing Stripes.
Right.
You've got Madagascar, a $556.5 million movie.
Yeah, I guess that's
about,
a lot of money. I guess.
Wild animals in a zoo escaping.
Yeah.
And you also have Chicken Little.
Does
another...
Did that, and Chicken Little, that was super successful and made loads and loads of money, right? Yeah, that was super good for everyone involved.
I don't have the numbers on that one. I seem to remember it being a little bit of a success. But because of the massive hit the Madagascar was, this isn't a situation where you've got like Volcano and Dante's Peak at the same time. This is okay. I'm gonna go there. This is like Italian exploitation, where the Italian film market is almost, at least in the 70s and 80s, almost primarily based on what was a massive blockbuster in America. Let's do knockoff sequels.
You gotta admire it.
I do. The industriousness of the Italian film industry is unparalleled.
That's the Jersey cows at work right there. They were making all those movies.
Hey now, hey. So
that's what they like. They like hay.
You got those three movies in 2005. 2006, when this movie comes out. Here is the list of animated movies starring a group of animals on a wacky adventure.
Okay.
March 31st, you have the Ice Age sequel, Meltdown.
Yeah.
April 14th, you have The Wild.
Yeah.
About a bunch of zoo animals released into a city.
So, okay, so literally Madagascar is what we're doing. We just did another Madagascar. Okay, cool.
Yes. May 19th, Over the Hedge.
Oh, yeah.
August 4th, Barnyard.
Mm-hmm.
September 29th, Open Season.
Oh, Jesus.
November 3rd, Flushed Away.
Oh, my God.
November 17th, Happy Feet. And
Wow.
then on December 15th, Charlotte's Web.
That was a really big year for animal adventures, wasn't it?
More or less successful degrees. You've got sequels. You've got really, like beautiful animation in some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Barnyard, with just its lack of story and lack of literal textures, just completely disappears into the background of all of those films.
Barnyard really kind of brought a knife to a gunfight, coming out in the same year as Ice Age, Happy Feet, and that's a lot.
And to just kind of prove that the market was oversaturated, the next year, 2007, here are the movies that come out in this vein: Surf's Up.
The penguin surfing movie, honestly kind of works, but go on.
And the Bee Movie.
Not the Bee Movie, just Bee Movie.
So like Hollywood was like, okay, we've done enough with these animals.
Yeah.
too many. get the successful ones sequels and get those in the works. But I think we've had enough. We've unleashed too many animals at too short a period of time.
Unleashed. I also love that B-movie really put an end. It didn't just put an end to Jerry Seinfeld's film career. It also put an end to the animal CGI adventure craze.
Well, it didn't really. I mean, there are other examples. I'm just saying, like, the group of animals. Like, there's Bolt. I mean, there's tons of movies that are coming out at this time about anthropomorphized animals, but not a group of animals getting up to like party antics.
And that's the thing. Listen, I think B-movie, which I saw in theaters, could have done with a little bit more partying, if you ask me. But I don't know. I do love, though, that it was coming so fast and furious for a tight period of time, like just all of these movies that are basically the same thing, and then it was just like the end of an era with B-movie. We put so much into B-movie, so much was right. Like, B-movie is an inflection point for so many different things that all kind of just connected there and stopped there, and something new came out on the other side.
That is why Barnyard is forgotten.
Yeah.
I mean, the long and the short of it. It might live on in some people's minds, but collectively it just, like Jason Bourne escaping into a crowd of, people in New York just disappears.
Or like the movie Jason Bourne starring Jeremy Renner, it just disappears.
That's the Bourne legacy. Jason Bourne was when Matt Damon returned. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. That was a much more memorable cinema going experience that really
I saw neither of them.
Imprinted on my brain.
All right. Well, then we're to the point. We got to turn our keys. Should we send this back to modern memory or leave it floating out forgotten in the ether?
I can't explain why I have this verdict, but I say we should send it back to modern memory purely because I think looking at it as an unintentional sequel to Animal Farm is really fun, and I think that hey, listen, if any of our listeners are like 11th grade English teachers and you're going to teach your class Animal Farm, maybe consider Barnyard. You can show it in a high school on a TV on a cart if they still do that. It might make, if nothing else, if one or two of your classmates really start vibing off of it and talking about it, you can like pull them aside and tell them not to start podcasts, and you can make a better world for everyone else.
I don't have a choice here. I can't send this back to modern memory, even if I wanted to, just because I wouldn't remember which film it is that I wanted to send back to modern memory. Like, this film is just it refuses to stay in my brain. When we get to the end of the season and we look back, I will not remember that we watched Barnyard. In fact, I will struggle to remember what Barnyard was.
You won't even understand, like, conceptually in your brain what a barnyard is. You're saying, like, what is it where there's animals and there's fences and there's a farmhouse?
Yeah.
There's a barn. What's the thing outside the barn? What is this?
Barnyard is the movie equivalent of walking into your bedroom to get something and then forgetting why you walked into the room, and you stand there in the center of the room going, why did I walk in here?
Yeah, but
and then you leave and you go, oh, I gotta go get my socks.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go back into the room and you're like, wait, why was I here?
Wherever there's a kid looking at an image on a screen and not really knowing how to feel about the way the animals are presented as humans, Barnyard will be there. Wherever there's a Shaggy song being performed diegetically in a film, Barnyard will be there.
All right, well, I guess that wraps up our discussion about the movie Barnyard. That's one for the ages.
We kept it at a tight 2 hours and 20 minutes on the movie Barnyard. That's all we could muster.
You could almost watch the movie Barnyard twice.
Oh, hopefully you remember more of this podcast than you would if you had actually watched the movie Barnyard twice.
Oh, my God. Well, I guess until next week, stay safe out there, folks. Keep transmitting.
And don't go tipping cows, because sometimes they'll follow you back and they'll tip you.
Don't go tipping cows. Stick to the calves that you're used to.
Movie Memory Machine is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/gruntworkpodcast to keep the machine running. Theme song by Porky's Groove Machine. Rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. For more information on today's show, visit moviememorymachine.com.